Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Aurelia Sushek, Career Community, live from Berlin. Welcome to today's CC Webinar Live keynote and knowledge sharing session, sponsored by Telin. Great to have you here, and thank you for joining. Now, I would like to invite Eric van Stockholm to introduce our keynote speaker and panelists, and later on to moderate the session. Dear audience, please use the chat box to address your questions to our keynote speaker or panelists during the session. Now, that's all from me. Eric, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Aurelia, and welcome all you out there. I'm delighted on behalf of the Career Community to have the keynote speaker Azmal from Telin here with us, and all the panelists, of course. And welcome to the Telin Insights, so powered by the Career Community today with me. So we're going to discuss the future of the Trans-Pacific connectivity today, and we will start the session with a keynote presentation of Azmal from Telin. Afterwards, we're going to bridge this into our interactive panel session, and I quickly give everybody now a quick minute to introduce themselves. So, Azmal, please, may I ask you to start, please?
Sure. Greetings, everyone. I'm Azmal from Telin. I'm basically in charge of the carrier enterprise outfit, so to speak.
Okay, thank you so much. Chris, good morning, or good afternoon
good
for
morning.
you.
It's afternoon for me. Thank you, Eric. My name is Chris Hampart-Sumian. I work for Google Cloud. I'm based in Singapore. Yeah, I'm an engineer or a customer engineer in the cloud division of Google. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you for good having you, Chris. Paul, how are you?
Hi, everyone. My name's Paul Abfolter. I run the global wholesale vertical at Telstra, based in Hong Kong. Have been here for over a decade.
Good having you, Paul. Thank you for being here. Shwen, good afternoon. How are you? Let's go to Soman.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Soman Venugopal. I am the Director Service Provider Practice for APJC in Cisco, and I kind of focus on all transformations across architecture, business, operations, and organization for SP customers. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Soman, and welcome you as well. So, Azmal, I think the floor is yours for your keynote presentation, and I'm sure it will be interesting. So the floor is yours, Azmal.
Thank you very much, Eric. Just hold on a second while I get it shared. All right. Greetings, everybody. I think everybody can see this the slides well, yeah, in that sense. Again, thank you, Career Community, for allowing myself to be able to speak on behalf of Telin. Again, my name is Azmal. I'm the Executive Vice President for Carrier Enterprise, Telin. And again, today, the presentation is all about Trans-Pacific connectivity, the future and what it holds. And I guess particularly when we, focus a lot more on the pandemic situation and so on and so forth. So allow me to just share a little bit of Telin for those who may or may not know. Telin is actually short for Telkom Indonesia International. So we are basically the international arm of PT Telkom Indonesia, one of the largest state-owned enterprises and one of the largest telco in Indonesia, of course. We actually have for Telin, we have about 500 plus people worldwide. We have global offices in Singapore, Malaysia, Timor-Leste, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Macau, US, Australia, New Zealand, Myanmar, and Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. With any of the international networks, we run 59 point of presence in over 28 countries. We have a total of 19 data centers, majority of which is in Indonesia, three in Singapore, one in Hong Kong, and one in Timor-Leste. We also have about 250 global wholesale and enterprise customers, give and take. Just to give a bit of market share perspective of Indonesia, we have about 173 million mobile subscriber base through our sister company called Telkomsel. We boast about 60% market share there, and about 8 million high-speed broadband subscribers, fiber to the home, where we hold about 85% market share in that sense. As most carriers around the world, we also invest a lot in subsea cable. So we do have more than 207,000 kilometers worth of submarine cable systems. Looking at that, it's like circling the Earth 5 times, so to speak. And for Telkom and Telin, we actually carry over 12 terabits of global internet traffic from Indonesia. And based on Renesys, we are currently ranked number 2 in the world from a peering perspective. We do a whole lot more of localized peering, if you will, or local peering points based on our point of presence in order to serve our subscriber base or our eyeballs to be as close to content as possible. And of course, some awards that we've taken along the way. Again, thank you very much, Carrier community and the community as a whole. All right. So again, coming back to the future of Trans-Pacific, I know, well, we talk about Trans-Pacific, but to be honest, I think everything's all interconnected anyways, so to speak. And the main point about fiber connectivity, again, is the impact of the pandemic situation. I know this has been discussed time and time again, but again, with thankfully, with the here of a new cure coming up pretty soon, I guess the whole idea is what can we expect out of this, so to speak. So again, if we were to look at the impact of the pandemic situation before the pandemic situation hit, if you were to look at this part of the slide, the bar chart clearly shows a trend in terms of the capacity. If you were to look, I think maybe it's a bit small. The bars down here, these are transatlantic. These are basically Trans-Pacific, and this is basically Trans-Asia. So I'd like to focus on the 3 bars, if you will. So of course, needless to say, Transatlantic, there will be so-called the glut of traffic, so to speak. Trans-Pacific is also not too far behind if you were to add Trans-Pacific as well, and Trans-Asia in a sense. And again, before the pandemic situation is already on quite high. Of course, with the pandemic situation, one will likely estimate that it has at least increased by more than 50%, if not double up, in terms of the capacity growth and requirements, so to speak. So, and if we were to look at the pattern, with the pandemic situation, everybody, going more online, so to speak. So the information that we got, or the data that we got from via social, clearly indicates the increase in terms of online usage and digital activities. So there was a study done by them for people within the demography of 16-year-old with 64, with countries that's spanning the globe, really. And there's been an increase of 54% watching more online streaming, 43% spend longer times in social media, 42% actively in their messaging system, 37% listening to streaming, music streaming, 36% along those lines spending more time on mobile apps. So again, when we look at this, another 35% on video games and so on and so forth. So there has been a marked increase of all the online activities, and the moment that hits, basically what it means is that people need more bandwidth. Quality needs to be ensured, and service providers such as us will have to actually up our ante, so to speak, to be able to cater for such demand, being close to the content, if you will. And if we look into the middle side of the section of the slide, this shows what's happening in Indonesia based on our network, so to speak. So in terms of the growth, the traffic growth, we've seen an unprecedented growth of about 650% growth in terms of video streaming, 275% in terms of video conferencing, 81% growth in terms of gaming and 13% in terms of e-commerce. And if we would look at the traffic proportion, 61% of our traffic is actually on video streaming. 20% is actually on video conferencing, 11% on gaming, and 8% basically constitute more for the e-commerce side of the equation. So what it all means, again, by the end of the day, online activity has increased tremendously. The speed of digital adoption has also propelled in a far greater way than we had anticipated. And again, all this again demands bandwidth. And if we were to construe it based on in terms of fiber capacity, by the end of the day, again, cloud, internet, whatever have you, it still traverses through the fibers that we have around the world in that sense. So again, there is a high occupancy in the existing Trans-Pacific route, particularly when we need most of our content in Asia. Either we're looking at things within Asia, if not, the content is usually derived from the US in that sense. So again, huge increase in terms of bandwidth hungry application. So for us in Telin, we manage the outbound traffic, if you will, and inbound traffic as well to that degree. So we have been, in a sense, the past few months have been tremendous in terms of us monitoring, managing, optimizing all our networks, getting as close to content as possible, ensuring that capacity is available, and partnering with all the right partners to ensure that we get the best, to a certain extent, content to our eyeballs, so to speak. So basically, again, what happens is, again, our traffic internet flow, while we talk about all this, for us, as I mentioned, in our part of the world over here, the content that we actually, for lack of a better word, hungry for, basically content coming from the US as well as within Asia itself. So again, everybody's seen this. Everybody has this, has seen this map time and time again. Our main, capacity, especially coming from an Asian telco, of course, will be centered around this particular region. But at the same token, as mentioned, and as per our topic of discussion, I mean, we do need a whole lot of content that's coming out from the US in that sense. So traditional route will always go through Trans-Asia and then Trans-Pacific, particularly from the northern side of the area. And again, when we talk about the future of Trans-Pacific cable system, there's a whole lot more options in the Trans-Asia side than there are in the Trans-Pacific side. So, and in the same token, we need resiliency, right? We need diversity. So most often than not, most of us are running on most of these cable systems already, and we need more to that effect. And there isn't much, but at the same time, it's also high occupied in that sense. So for Telin, even before the pandemic situation, we realized the need for diversity, and that's when we actually deployed something called IGG in CUS, whereby from a Trans-Pacific route, instead of going through the Luzon Strait, Hong Kong, Japan, China, and getting into the US, it actually comes out. It connects Singapore through Indonesia right up to Manado Cable Landing Station in Sulawesi, where this is IGG. And it actually then hits into CUS that brings it all the way to LA, to a certain extent bypassing the Luzon Straits, or rather, for lack of a better word, North Asia, thus giving that diversity factor that we felt was very prudent. And to be honest, with the pandemic situation, this has basically solidified our decision to go this way in terms of building more capabilities and diversity in the Trans-Pacific area, so to speak. So again, for Telin, we worked with RTI of the US as well as Globe and the Philippines, and for GTA and Guam. Yeah. So basically, again, from a traffic flow perspective, needless to say, we have the European route, Inter-Asia route, but of course, this is fast becoming our main route going into the Trans-Pacific portion in that sense. So with the global market condition currently right now, of course, there's challenges with the market trend, whether or not whether or not we're going to be seeing the end of the pandemic or whether we're in middle of it, whatever it is. So the pandemic has basically sped up digital adoption, and and the usage for high bandwidth, hungry bandwidth application has increased multiple folds. And it also then derives a lot of challenges for us as service providers. And while there are many challenges, one of the key challenges that we like to highlight is, of course, as what I've been mentioning just now, is the network resiliency side of the picture. Whether or not the amount of cable systems, of course, the diversity path, and so on and so forth. So that's the area that we focus on, at least for us in Telin. About one of the biggest challenges to overcome is the fact of network resiliency and diversity. But with these challenges, of course, there lies the opportunities in that sense. And for us, we felt that, again, before the pandemic hit, we already felt that an alternative route is required. We were too heavily dependent on the traditional way to get through the Trans-Pacific side and getting to the US. So therefore, we, again, as mentioned, we decided to invest on IGGCUS, hence using Southeast Asia out rather than Southeast Asia, North Asia into the US. Of course, there's via Europe, and again, of course, there's also via Australia out as well. So providing the alternative route would give opportunities moving forward within the Trans-Pacific area in that sense. And then also integrated solutions. So while we've got the layer one, so to speak, in terms kind of sorted out, or at least we've planned or know what we need to do in that sense, integrated also comes into play. I mean, it goes back to the very DNA of what we have. I mean, again, if you talk about cloud or IP or whatever it is, by the end of the day, the brick and mortars of all that is connectivity, or from a subsea perspective or fiber perspective, data centers, right? So it gives us an opportunity to actually come up with seamless connectivity solution, amalgamating our submarine side of the equation, data center, cloud services, and even IoT, so to speak. So that's an area that we ourselves in Telin are focusing on as well. I'm sure quite a number of carriers are also looking into that particular landscape as well. And with the adoption of digital technology or digital applications, so on and so forth, there comes also an area where on-demand services is also kind of like goes hand in hand. So even for us right now, what I can share is that for Telin, we are also fast developing some new products that we look to launch pretty soon, that basically digitalize our DNA services into a digital field, so to speak, thus giving on-demand services and quick access via APIs and so on and so forth. By the end of the day, we also hear, the demand of the customers. Some customers, these days don't even want to see us. Everything's online, so to speak. So areas that we're listening. Thus, by the end of the day, to ensure the best experience for our customers, partners, and users. So, in a sense, for Telin as well, we see tremendous growth for the Trans-Pacific route. The challenge there is that we don't have enough cable systems. To deploy cable systems is not cheap, to say the least. Investments will be challenged to that degree, but we also do feel that the demand is there, the capacity is required, and Telin with our global partners, I mean, we're here to actually bring Indonesia and ASEAN to the world, and of course the world to ASEAN as well as Indonesia. So with that, I end my presentation. Thank you very much for listening in. Over to you, Eric.
Thank you very much, Azmal, and very interesting presentation. Let's have a look if there is, let's say, any question, maybe in the chat box. You people out there, you can always ask a question in the chat box. when you're when you're joining us via Zoom. If no, it seems that everything is actually quite clear, so there are no questions. But I do have one, Asmal, because you were talking about resilience, and that is, let's say, one of the main, let's say, challenges you have. Can you give me, let's say, an example where you strategically, actually, on Tilin's board, was that resilience was so important and to address? Can you give us, let's say, and something to hold on to, make it, you know? Do you have
Well,
it for us?
well, on layman's term perspective, again, by the end of the day, it's something which operators or ISPs or telcos such as us sometimes face. Touch wood, we hope that it doesn't, but fiber cuts, for example. So simple fiber cuts, whether it's due to fisheries or tectonic plates that shifts, creates a subsea fiber cut, and that's has been rampant, so to speak, within the Trans-Asia route, so to speak. And for us to actually to get to the US, for example, we need the Trans-Asia, then the Trans-Pacific, right? So, and the Trans-Pacific, most of our cable system is really running from Hong Kong, Japan, China, back to the US. So that's why, again, as I mentioned, we decided to use a different approach where it then comes out. Basically, we connect Singapore into Indonesia, and then out by CUS. That it takes a Trans-Pacific route, but on a more southern part, so to speak.
Yeah, no. That's clear. Well, again, thank you very much, Asmal. It was a very interesting presentation, and thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
The story and the insight from Telin. Now, as you mentioned, we within your presentation, it's all clear. The future of the Trans-Pacific connectivity. That's actually what we're going to talk about. The current trends, the challenges, the opportunities. Of course, again, the resilience of the network, as Asmal already mentioned. How prepared are we, and maybe we can we have time enough to look a little bit into the future. So let me please welcome Paul, Chris, Soman again to the floor, and let me immediately move in there, guys. Chris, I mean, from your point of view, and being, of course, at Google, what do you see are the biggest trends or factors actually affecting the current connectivity market in the region to meet the demand, or even the higher demand which we see now in the COVID situation?
Thanks, Eric. So at Google, they've been increasing their investments in subsea cables. It's at 14 cables now, one of them Trans-Pacific, another one down to Australia. And more than half of those 14 investments are in the last 2 years. So they're accelerating their growth. Google's got sort of many different services, and the part of the business that I work in is in Google Cloud. And just in our Q3 numbers, the growth of cloud has been huge. Across all the cloud providers, Google included, 45% the last quarter over the previous year. And so it's, as Asmal said, it's like there's the demand and the consumer use is there, and then from the cloud perspective, it's the business to business. It's the businesses that are now, there's global businesses that want to reach all these people all over the world. And another driving factor, two such examples, video consumption. Video consumption used to be a regional thing, your regional cable operator or your direct-to-home satellite operator. But Netflix is clearly a global operator, and they've got to get their content all over the world. Of course, there's the whole last mile thing, and they've got the caches in the ISPs. But it's coming from studios that are producing it, and they're moving around huge amounts of data. Another one in the other direction, TikTok. This is a huge social platform. We've had a number of big social platforms. They've all been from America. This is the social platform that's not from America, and this is a social platform that uses video. Has a huge demand on video, and videos go, are popular among young people in America and in Asia. So they've got to move around the world. So so Google will have. That's why they've been, they've got the consumer end in YouTube and Google services. They've got the cloud end in enterprise, but they're investing in subsea cables because it's the driving force behind all of those. So I just see it continuing to grow. and more investments, more connectivity between all, more POPs, and much more of a global nature, really, rather than just regional.
Okay, thank you. Paul, from an operator point of view, from Telstra point of view, and being, let's say, playing a major role in the Asia Pac region, of course, and throughout the world, what is the biggest trends or the factors that you see are affecting the connectivity market, actually?
I think two big changes, two big trends for this year, obviously COVID and geopolitics. I think the COVID side, we've talked already a lot about how much that's accelerated and brought forward a lot of demand. Massive demand spikes, really a couple of years worth of demand in 1 year. But it's also caused a lot of other issues on the manufacturing and build side. So, huge issues in terms of getting travel happening, both within countries and internationally. Various marine delay issues because of the COVID situation, as well as manufacturing delays, and some of the manufacturing facilities with the cable vendors have been shut down for a period of this calendar year. So that's been a bit of an issue in terms of backing up what was already a big backlog of builds that were really necessary in the region. And obviously, the geopolitics side has really changed the direction of a lot of the traffic in the industry, and sort of moved the centre of gravity to an extent a little bit east and south. And I'm sure that's something we'll get into a little bit more today.
No, absolutely. Thank you. Soman, Cisco, well, how do you see it? Do you agree with the guys, or do you see something else as a trend? Or
yeah, I think we are uniquely situated, right? And we are seeing the cloud, we are seeing the service providers, and we are seeing the enterprise. And I feel that the global trends that are shaping this network demand, of course, it's accelerated by the pandemic and the current scenario, are 5 important aspects, right? There's a lot of globalization that's happening. There's a digital business transformation that's happening. Businesses automating stuff, so business automation is picking up. There's a lot of resilience that's built on business and operational. So the business and operational resilience is shaping up in a large way, and sustainability, right? So these are the 5 global trends that are shaping up the network demand. But technology is not far behind, right? There are technology trends that are driving the network evolution, and there are 6 large technology trends that are driving this network evolution, right? There's an evolving apps landscape. Over the years, we have moved from a voice economy to an app economy to now a video economy, right? And there's a good option to move from the video economy to an AR VR economy from the evolution of technology, right? The second is IoT, which is a massive technology trend that is driving network evolution. The third is AI, and then you have mobility, security, and immersive experiences, right? So these are the large 6 technology trends that are driving the network evolution. But what is key in all of this is obviously connectivity, right? And connectivity is that kind of common denominator and the common framework on top of which all of these capabilities are built and driven. And fortunately or unfortunately, everybody talks about 5G and cloud, but there is a very common construct that is behind the scenes, that's behind the curtains, which is shaping up all of this, which I feel is the submarine networks, right? And it's like a kind of the foundation which is not seen. People just look at the buildings and the doors and windows, but I feel submarine is the foundation which connects all of that together, right? So it's extremely important to not just look at submarine as a capacity enabler, but also look at it from the evolution of enabling not just global growth and globalization, but also technology trends. So as I said earlier, right, look at all aspects of not just the technology and the architecture, but also the architectural transformation, the business benefits that you get out of it, how you operationally manage that, right? Resiliency, automation, management, and those aspects, and how you can have a smart team and a smart organization structure around all of these constructs to take it to where we want it to be, right? And we saw it earlier that video is kind of dominating it today, right? I mean, 70-80% of all traffic is video, be it streaming or conferencing and all of that. But there is a huge potential to move or translate this video experience into a VR and AR experience. And you need to look at the silent guy who is the foundation of all of this in a much more different prism, which is key to our growth.
Okay, no, absolutely, and I think you mentioned there are a couple of very interesting points. Asmal, Soman was mentioning also some let's say some key challenges which is all faces. I mean, the growth and what we're seeing and pinpointing absolutely. That's why at the Carry community we do take the time to talk about submarine, because it is key and it is, let's say, the basic of whatever we want to do. Because by the end of the day, if we do not have the transport layer, not only for the transport for transporting it, but if we don't have it, how do we get there? Right, by the end of the day, from one end to the other end of the world, even though that satellite is not covering everything or is much too expensive. Now, Asmal, going a bit into the challenges part. So, what challenges or key challenges actually are affecting actually the players, given the capacity shortage due to the global market? I mean, you mentioned already in your presentation that with IGS, going up from Sulawesi up to the US, you already invested a lot in there. 207,000 kilometers of sea cable is a lot and costs a huge amount of money, let alone the planning and the operation of it. So, where do you see the key challenges, which is still there?
Yeah, I mean, by the end of the day, the key challenge for us as an operator as well, in order to justify all the build, is how we actually, for lack of a better word, maximize our eyeballs, so to speak. So fortunately enough for at least the telecom group is that we do hold quite a sizable amount of eyeballs, be it on the mobility side or the fixed. And this is why even for us, in order for us to, I mean, it's not just about, as you mentioned, I mean, it's about the fiber, but at the same time, it's also about partnering all the OTT players, the content providers. We don't want to build a cable system, but then suddenly it's empty. And there must always be a basis. And usually the thing is this, I mean, for the challenge for that one is to justify it, is to ensure that we are, for at least for the telecom group, is that we have a base of serving our customers, our eyeballs, so to speak. And then, of course, then there will be the carrier wholesale side of the business, whereby we sell to other carriers, other OTT players, and so on and so forth. That's pretty much normal. But at least the main bulk, the main objective is actually to serve our end customers, our users, our eyeballs in that sense. So and one of the main challenges there is to ensure that we always keep those eyeballs. And to ensure that we keep those eyeballs is, again, we need to ensure that we invest correctly, partner with the right people. Again, Telin or Telcom cannot do this alone. We need the Googles of the world, we need the Facebooks of the world, and so on and so forth. So again, the partnership is there. In many conferences, I always stress about partnership, that we can't do these things all alone. We need to partner, and that further helps justify the challenges of trying to create or invest in new cable system. The other thing is basically, again, by the end of the day, we live in a world where it's already, to a certain extent, predefined. So the path, the routes are already there. So again, it's about finding new alternative routing wherever it may be, so to speak. And for us, at least for Telcom and Telin and our partners, we managed to find an area where it does provide that resiliency to assist in our traditional route of Trans-Pacific in that sense.
Okay, Paul, being let's say a colleague operator, where do you see the main challenges? And I think you mentioned this already in your opening statement on the first question. But where do you see the key challenges? Let's say affecting actually the shortage which we see actually.
Look, I think even at the best of times, APAC is a really difficult region to build and operate subsea. I think Asmal mentioned it in his presentation. You know, APAC is the worst in the world for subsea cable cuts, partly because of shallow water fishing, partly because of earthquakes. So it's challenging at the best of times, and I think, you know, unusually, I think the industry actually underinvested a little bit on the mid-Trans-Pacific route. You know, AAG, we couldn't get upgrades done quick enough, and the industry was a little bit late. We're investing in, you know, two of the Hong Kong US cables at the moment. The industry was a little bit late, and of course, whilst that was going on, we've now had some geopolitical issues this year, which have meant the direct Hong Kong US cables need to be reconfigured. We're investing in both of those in terms of HKA and PLCN. And, you know, that's creating, you know, a lot of challenges for the industry. We desperately need that capacity. And, you know, it means that in the short term, we need to reconfigure a lot of those builds that were going into Hong Kong. And it means there's a bit of a scramble for capacity on sort of alternate routes at the moment. In the medium term, it means a lot more focus on getting Singapore US cable built, which is hugely, hugely important now. In the longer term, I think it certainly means more builds and a lot more focus on areas like Taiwan, the Philippines, and even in Australia in terms of new builds and cable landing stations. So you've seen a huge amount of activity that the industry is working on. You know, 3 different builds from us into Taiwan and the Philippines. And I think for some parts of that, the industry is well placed. And for others, you know, we are scrambling a little bit in terms of sort of underestimating some of those geopolitical issues and some of the need for those reconfigurations. So a huge amount of activity, but a challenging region to get builds done at the best of times. I think we sort of look at Taiwan and the Philippines, you know, in a way that's, you know, we're very, very large operator there. We own multiple cable landing stations. We've got 2 fully owned cable systems going in there, as well as 1 partly owned one. So, you know, we're well placed to help manage a lot of those reconfigurations, and certainly we're doing a lot of heavy lifting on them now, but we're a little bit behind the curve as an industry, I think, in terms of predicting the rise of their importance and a few of the other locations in the region as well.
No, Paul, I think you're right, and especially with the challenges you mentioned before, they make it difficult, of course. And I understand. But on the other hand, I mean, Chris was just telling us that they're investing in 22, let's say, cables down there. So is he not partnering with you, or is it the other way around? Because I think, as Asmal said correctly, and so sorry to drop a little bit of bomb here, but partnering is key. I mean, I see this as, and we all see this actually in other regions as well, that is the only way for everybody to achieve more. I mean, this is why we call it team, right? It's so Paul, or maybe Chris actually. Sorry.
Yeah, certainly from a transoceanic point of view, you know, they're expensive builds, they're challenging. It's super important that you partner up, and certainly, you know, we're a close partner of both Google and China Mobile in particular, and we've got, you know, co-builds that we're doing across the region at the moment. We do a number of co-builds with Google, and we're a landing station operator and a landing services provider to them for a number of their builds as well. So partnering is super important, particularly for the transoceanic ones. I think intra-Asia, the shorter routes, a little bit different. You know, we've certainly historically gone on our own a little bit and been able to do that with, you know, the EAC and C2C fully owned cable systems. But look, partnering is very, very important. I think it also helps to an extent, you know, it helps cover the field from a geopolitical point of view as well. You know, we're very proud of the fact that, you know, we're one of the few providers that can land cable on both sides of the Pacific, pretty much everywhere, and to be very, very politically neutral in terms of the way that we do that. You know, I think the way we partner and the way others partner is sort of super, super important in terms of you know, getting these builds happening and having us catch up a little bit in terms of the capacity that's needed in APAC, particularly mid-Trans-Pacific right now.
No, absolutely, and I understand, but I think also the factor is because we were all talking about it already, and we know since years it is the investments are huge, and now we know that for instance the Googles, they have a bit more deeper pocket than let's say the operators, correct? So Chris, are you helping those guys? Are you helping the operators? Are you open for it? What? Tell me. Sorry for
Yeah,
dropping.
yeah. No, that's quite all right. Of the cable investments that Google are involved in, I think all of them bar one are consortiums and partners. They're rarely going into it themselves, and I think as Paul mentioned as well, we don't have the landing stations. So we have all landing station agreements with Telin, with Telstra, who have already been there and have already been doing this. So Google is actually much newer to this. And as I say, they are partnerships. Interestingly, sometimes the partners are the Facebook of the world, and sometimes it's a mixture of the kind of the OTT, the newcomers, and the traditional operators as well. So we partner with both sides, and we need to partner for landing stations as well.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. So I'm happy to hear this because you know a lot of people, a lot of operators, let's say in the old days, and old days is already is even 5 years ago, they were massively afraid about you. And what we see now is that finally, you know what, you don't have you look the same human as everybody else, you know. And I'm happy to see that as Asmal put it rightly, and Paul as well, that the partnering part is so important, because otherwise we can't do it. And so Soman, you mentioned a couple of examples that you know, if 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 the submarine isn't, let's say, networks are not happening, nothing is happening. So Soman, if you allow me, I mean, we were talking about the challenges and which are out there, of course, but let's look at the opportunity side of the part. So, what are the opportunities in the context of, let's say, improved capacity, competition, and resilience? And how prepared are we actually, and how do you see that, let's say, the operators are prepared, because I do two different things.
I think if you just look historically in the last 200 days, and unprecedented and unexpected burst in surge in traffic, right? And the most interesting phenomenon is the traffic is spread out, and it's a constant thing across the Asia Pac. If you look at it, right, people have moved from super dense regions to urban and suburban, and people have moved spread out kind of across geography, and the traffic is spread out across geography, right? Uh, and the interesting phenomenon is, if you look at it, uh, the industry has moved away from being a busy hour kind of a metric to a busy span of time kind of a metric, right? So it's not just that the people have moved out in terms of geography, in terms of data consumption, but the data consumption window is also spread out from being a busy hour traffic to a set of hours over a period of time. Right now, you're always connected all the time, and the consumption is spread out over a period of time. And if you just look at the larger internet, it has stayed strong and it has stayed rock solid, right? So fundamentally, the belief in IP as a protocol, to be it on terrestrial or be it on submarine, has been a very rigid and strong approach, right? So it's extremely important to ensure that we as Cisco and the companies in the technology space are constantly innovating and rolling out silicon at a faster pace to meet those demands. We need to pump more TBPS per chip or per RU at a very safe power consumption level, right? So that's a very important aspect in terms of what product innovation should do, because this growth in consumption is not stopping. And if we really evolve from a video economy to a virtual reality and an augmented reality economy over a period of time, I think the kind of TBPS that you have to pack in per RU at X watts is going to be unprecedented scale, right? So product innovation is extremely, extremely critical. The second part is obviously the partner innovation, I think all of us spoke about. And I see a rush from operators wanting to lay out submarine cables on their own to consortiums. So there's a larger factor now. You can see consortiums coming out more and more with as many as a score of operators tying up, because we could do these calls on virtual setup, but you cannot go and lay a submarine on a virtual, right? You need hands and feet on the ground, and that's where consortium comes in. It's a pack of operators and partners and like-minded people coming together as a consortium and laying out those incremental capacity under the sea, right? So definitely partner. And the third aspect is privacy, right, and security. I know submarine is not like terrestrial. It's not very easy to go and tap a submarine cable. So while we build resiliency because of the shifts and earthquakes and ship anchors which could destroy cables, we are building resiliency in the architecture, and the topology is changing. We should also build security, and very important that the products that we build and the technology that we build are able to do security and encryption at a wireline speed, so that all the traffic that you send, not just on your terrestrial link, but also on your submarine link, is extremely secure at a wireline speed, right? So that you don't compromise on your rate of switching the payload as well. So these are extremely three important aspects that we see, because definitely the traffic growth is not going to stop, and it is not going to be linear, right? I know in 1965, four guys put four computers in different places and created what is called as the WAN technology, right? And 55 years later, we're still doing the same thing, but the entire economy around it has changed, right? I mean, it's still WAN, it's still networking, but the ecosystem is completely changed, the scale is completely changed, and the way you manage and monitor it is completely changed. So definitely a huge opportunity in the horizon, and we need to be well prepared, because the network that we know of today is not going to be the network of the future. It's going to evolve and transform drastically.
Yeah,
No, absolutely. And then, I mean, it was a wide area network, and now we call it SD-WAN, right? Software defined. So,
Yeah.
and I know you're playing a huge part in that. Asmal, is someone right? I mean, from an operator point of view, what do you see, and where do you see, let's say, the opportunities in the improved capacity, which we are actually, as we speak, another couple of kilometers or miles are late as we speak now. So where do you see the opportunities, and do you agree with someone? Asmal, if you can.
Sorry, I lost you for a bit just now.
Okay, so
I
sorry.
just see
No,
you.
my question was actually, do you agree with Suman? Is he right? Because of course he's from Cisco, so he has a bit of a different angle than an operator, and so and also, do you where do you see the opportunities if we improve the capacity and the competition and the resilience?
I'm definitely in agreement with Soman. I mean, he is coming from an approach of augmented reality. So basically, it's the application layer, and this is something which us, the telcos, while we are getting ourselves definitely involved because of customer needs and so on and so forth, but it's not something that we can just whip up just like that. So again, it still goes back to the partnership that I've been talking about. We are good at what we do, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we can just suddenly become the Cisco of the world, so to speak, creating augmented realities and security and so on and so forth. But do we provide such services to our end customer? The answer is yes. And again, that's where the partnership comes in. And I mean, it's a whole ecosystem, if you were to look at it. Rightfully said by Soman as well, whatever that we create, it needs to traverse. And by the end of the day, they traverse on IP. And by the end of the day, IP still requires subsea cables to connect to one another. So again, it's a whole ecosystem that we live in. So I'm totally, on for it, so to speak, in that sense.
Okay, thank you. Paul, as an operator and of course investor, do you agree, or do you think there are, let's say, other parts which could actually, increase the opportunities? I mean, we had the black swan, which is COVID. I fully understand, and we have the geopolitical points there. But on the opportunity side, where do you see how it should be, how it should become? Where's the big?
Yeah, look, apart from the massive spike in demand that we've had, and then the massive spike in build work as a result, and some of the changing locations of those builds, and the the push east and the push further south in terms of new builds and what have you. And there's obviously a ton of work that we're all doing there. For us, we're still building heavily in Australia. We're still building Singapore, US. We're reconfiguring these Hong Kong, US ones. But the use of software in the network has obviously changed a lot over the years. I think that's a really important evolution. We were one of the first in markets 5 years ago with software-defined networking on the subsea side, and it's still very much a leader there with our programmable network. So moving to models where, from a customer point of view, more fungible capacity models where we're able to move capacity around the network a lot easier, and more flexible commercial models. I think that's been a big change for us over the last few years. We're certainly intra-Asia and to the US, to Australia, to all the major routes in Asia, where we've got 3-path solutions in place and automatic rerouting. Even if you're not on protected, we've got that as a sort of very defined commercial offer called Always On. So I think the way the industry is evolving from a commercial point of view is really important. Hey, but Eric, we should bring in MT from CMI to have a chat about this as well, because as deeper pockets as Telstra have, we're putting about $500 million into Trans-Pacific over the last few years in terms of new subsea, and Google. I think China Mobile may be even deeper, more than any of us. So it'd be great to hear from MT a bit.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Yeah, sorry, let me introduce myself also. It is MT. I'm responsible for the global submarine network planning for all the China Mobile subsea network. I'm based in Hong Kong. So responding to Paul's question, I think first of all, China Mobile also quite committing to invest on multiple subsea network, especially for the intra-Asia and the Trans-Pacific, and also for the Euro-Asia. I think recently, especially, I think we also in the same position with ASMO. As long as the Asia operator, most of our traffic will be travel along within the Asia, from Singapore to Hong Kong to Japan. I think Hong Kong also being one of the important gateway for the China. So no matter the traffic coming into China or coming out from China to anywhere around the globe, also passing through China. So I think Hong Kong still being very important for building the subsea cable. So back to the diversity. In Hong Kong, we also already building multiple of cables in Hong Kong, including the cable landing station. We have already having 2 different cable landing stations in Hong Kong for multiple cable system, and we are also continue to seeking another opportunity to build another new one. And at the same time, for those traffic, I think. I also agree with Soman about the innovation of the technology. Back to 10 years ago, I think most of the cable system design around 2010, most of the cable system is talking about maximum decided capacity. We'll be talking about maybe 10 tera. But I think nowadays, all the new cable being designed already talking about for 100 tera for per cable system. So it is definitely able to seeing how innovative for the technology. At the same time, what is the demand for the internet? I think actually we also thanks to the internet. Without the internet, I believe in the pandemic situation, most of the activity already being closed. I think because of the internet, we can keep online shopping, we can do the e-payment, online banking. It is able to keep part of the economic activity to be continued. So I think in our daily life, we also making use of the internet a lot. At least we're still able to making the webinar over there like now, right? So most of the activity still able to continue, even though all of us are unable to travel. So back to the topic about the partnership, I think nobody is able to do anything by themselves. So that's why we also have it very happy to working with multiple partners. We're working with Telstra, we're working with Telin, we're also working with Google for multiple cable projects. So for the diversity, definitely it is very important because no, I don't think there is any cable could be guaranteed no any cable cut or cable fault in any time. So multiple diversity definitely will be part of a very important topic, especially when we already rely on our technology to rely on the subsea infrastructure to maintain our current life. So I think yeah, thanks again for Paul for introduction, and yeah, I pass time back to Eric.
Thank you, thank you, MT. So, staying with you, where do you see in the Asia Pac, let's say the biggest opportunities in general?
Sorry, the question for me, right?
Sorry, yes, it's for you, MT. Please, sorry.
Yeah,
Where do you see the biggest opportunities lying?
I think Asia definitely will be one of the growing area because traditional traditional traffic. I think definitely America still being the core of the internet. Most of the content will be traveling, will be transmitted from North America, from US. But as of the population in Asia, it is a very huge population. No matter from China, from India, from Indonesia, all of these countries also having a lot of population. I think maybe more than maybe around half of the world population. So actually the user, the people will be the user of the internet. So traffic across this country will definitely will making boosting up the requirement, the demand for the subsea network across multiple countries. For example, between Singapore to Hong Kong. Actually, as per mentioning by Paul, there another popular topic within the Asia will be Philippines, Taiwan, and also Indonesia. And I think Thailand also will be another location for the traffic boosting. So I think that's why most of the traffic from CMI perspective, especially we are the Chinese operator, we definitely willing to serving those countries because we definitely there will be a lot of economic communication between those countries.
Okay, thank you so much. So what comes up to me, because how much of, let's say, maybe that's a different question, but maybe you can answer that, Chris. How much of the content actually within Asia remains in Asia or goes, let's say, trans-Pacific to the US and back sometimes? Do you have those figures?
Were you asking me?
Oh, yes, sorry. Yes, Chris, please.
Oh, right. So we have multiple origins for the content. Obviously, there's a lot localized. You know, people produce content in Asia, people watch it in Asia. People produce content in Europe and America, and they watch it there too. And then you get the spillover, and that's where the subsea cable comes in. You know, the edge egress is way outstrips what the subsea cable system is. And even if only 10% is going transcontinent, it's still 10% of an extremely large number that's being egressed from the mobile operators. Yeah. So YouTube relies on subsea cables. So does this video conference. You know, we're all using subsea at some point to talk to one another today, I think.
Sure. No, okay. I was just curious about. So staying with you, Chris, and I'm seeing we were looking at the time frame. We're moving towards a little bit the end of this this very interesting webinar. What can we expect next? What do you see? If you would have, let's say, the glass ball, or you don't, what do you see? What's happening, Chris?
I see the demand going up. Transformation in the consumption of data, whether it's 5G or whether it's people now watching video, 4K video. That's going to drive this subsea new cable investments. And I think the point that's been raised today as well. So Google, as well as investing in subsea, we buy a wholesale. We can't do all of the subsea. We buy wholesale. And the other point is we want diversity. So we don't want to have only our own cables. We want.
Why don't you
other
buy
cables.
more? Why don't you buy more from guys like Telstra and Telin and completely?
We do. We not only do we partner, but we buy wholesale, right? In markets where our cloud regions are 134 POPs, we rely on the exchanges and the network capabilities that are there. So we just
no complaints.
Sorry, what? Paul?
Yeah, and
Paul, sorry, what? What did you say?
We've done a lot of business together this year, so Chris has been a very good customer of ours this year.
Wow, you see, Chris. Sorry, we were interrupting you, but there was your blessing.
Thank you very much, Paul. And it's not just Google; it's all of these companies that are now becoming global companies who are going to continue to buy wholesale in the exchanges, which is backed by undersea cables. And if it can be network diverse as well, for unexpected events that might happen, all the more important that becomes. So just growth. Any cable opportunity is a good opportunity, I think.
Okay, cool. Thank you, MT. How do you see the future? What's coming next towards us? What can we see?
I think in the future, the requirement for the internet definitely will be continue to be increased, and also more cable should be introduced, and also diversity will be one of the topic, and also the scale of the project itself. So because as you know, also another panelist also just mentioning, this is very difficult to building a single cable. So we also want to having to have a scalable and also huge cable to be built. So we have to gather most of the strong investor to come together to invest the project to make the project much stronger. So I think in the future, probably every single cable system may be talking about multiple hundred tera capacity per system, and also open access for the cable also very important. So every investor is able to freely to utilizing their own capacity, no matter for example for the OTT like Google, they can freely to utilizing their capacity. Telstra, Telin, they also having their own business to utilizing their capacity, their investment on the cable system, and also diversity. For example, we may building multiple cable system, like for example for the Trans-Pacific. Maybe the first cable will be passing closer to Japan. The second one will be in the south, just like passing through Indonesia, and then connecting to Guam and Hawaii, and then to US. I think it is definitely able to serving those purpose for the diversity purpose. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, MT. Paul, how do you see the future? If you
I think we've talked about a lot of it already. I think I very much agree with MT. You know, I think you may see fewer cable builds than perhaps what you would be expecting, but far more fiber pairs, higher yields. You're also going to see a lot more dispersion in terms of undersea cable hubs. You won't have quite the concentration that you've got now in places like Japan and Hong Kong. So Taiwan, Philippines will increase. Korea has seen a big increase in traffic this year as well. And places like Australia, which a few years ago we probably wouldn't have thought it was going to be a great destination just because of cost to be moving transport from the US to Asia, but that's going to continue to increase as well. The other thing we haven't talked about is just some of the underserved parts of the Pacific, you know, particularly from an islands point of view. You know, we're in a business that just has such a big impact and is so important in terms of lifting the productivity of companies, but also countries sometimes. So, you know, last year we saw a new build into PNG and the Solomon Islands. We're doing a new build with Southern Cross Next, which is going into Fiji, Tokelau and Kiribati. You're going to see a lot of undersea, a lot of long-term problems being solved for some of the smaller countries, some of the smaller markets in the region, that's just going to have a massive impact on productivity and the wealth in those markets.
Okay, thank you. Soman, so tell us what this, I mean, you normally like to talk about what's happening and what's coming towards us. So together with Chris, you do this a lot, I know. So can you please enlighten a little? What's going to hit us in a positive way?
I think I know the concept of crystal ball got killed in this pandemic situation, right? But I would still like to leave these three thoughts on where we would be by 2023, right? In the next 3 years. Not everybody has got a smartphone and an internet connection, right? So there is a very strong possibility of close to 5.3 billion global internet users in the next 3 years. There is a very strong possibility that we can have 3.6 per capita, and when I mean that, I mean that there could be 3.6 global devices and connections per capita. And the most important piece is, the third piece is, our average global fixed broadband speed can go from where we are today to close to 110 Mbps, right? So these are the three very strong, adoption that could happen globally, and to unite and tie all of these things, there's going to be a strong hand of God, and that's going to be the subsea network.
Okay, thank you very much. Last but certainly not least, Azmal, please, as the floor is yours for let's say the closing statement of what we gonna see in the coming period.
You're on mute, Azmal.
You have to unmute yourself, Azmal.
There you go. Sorry. Sorry. Well, thanks, Eric. And again, I totally agree with all my esteemed panelists. I mean, all the points have been well said, well put. Again, for me, IP will still be the next big thing. Everything will still run on it. And, there'll be more digital adoption, definitely more growth, hence more partnership and more opportunities, So, to sum up, I think whether there's pandemic or there's no pandemic, geopolitical, whatever it is, it's just that digital adoption will always be there. The new norm is here to stay, whether you like it or not. So again, it's already entrenched in our daily lives. So what does it mean to players such as us? More partnerships, more opportunities, more growth. That's it.
Thank you so much, Azmal. And ladies and gentlemen, it seems that we're getting to the end of this very, very, very interesting webinar live session here at the Carry Community. So I would like to thank the keynote speaker Azmal and the sponsor Telin, and for your participation and giving interesting presentation about Telin. And of course to our panelists, Chris, MT, Soman, and Paul. Thank you very much. An honor having you all around this virtual table. I would like to thank the audience for joining more than an hour with us, and hope you found it very interesting. Please stay tuned, because there's much more coming from the Carry Community webinars towards you. So from my side, it's now ciao for now. See you next time. Stay tuned and stay healthy and safe. And now I'll give back the floor to my colleagues in the studio in Berlin. So it's over to you, Aurelia. Thank you, guys.
Dear all, we are at the end of our first Telin Insights webinar session powered by CC. On behalf of Carry Community, I would like to thank Telin for sponsoring this session, Azmal for his interesting presentation, and our panelists, Chris, Paul, Soman, and MT for sharing their knowledge with us. Dear audience, I hope you found this session interesting and you enjoyed the time spent with us. We are looking forward to welcoming you to our upcoming webinar sessions on the 25th and 26th of November, and our second Telin Insights session, powered by CC, on the 3rd of December. Please visit our event portal and webinar calendar for more information. If you are interested in sponsoring one of our future webinar sessions or events, please contact CC team for more details. Recorded version of this session will be published soon on our media portal. Please make sure you follow us on social media not to miss it. Again, thank you all for joining. Stay safe and healthy. Bye for now.